What's going on, everybody? It's LSB with another episode of Lights Sports Breakdown. Football is over. Tampa Bay Buccaneers have been crowned the Super Bowl champs. Baseball is in spring training. All the teams have been reporting, and they're playing their spring training games, and the season isn't going to be for a couple of months. Hockey's going on, and the NBA season is underway. We're almost at the halfway point. We're at the last week of February, and in March, we're going to be playing the All-Star game. The All-Star teams have been announced, the captains and the reserves. So that's very exciting, but I'm talking about the NBA, and if you haven't noticed by all the jerseys, and especially what I'm wearing, I'm talking about the Miami Heat, because early on in the season, the Heat were 7-14. We're struggling. We're losing. We're breaking down in the fourth quarter. Now they currently sit at 15-17. So they've won 7 of their last 10 games. And before they won the 7 out of their last 10, the whole finals run, fluke or no fluke, was brought into being. And I'm going to talk about 5 reasons why saying that finals run was not a fluke, and that the Miami Heat deserved to play in the finals last year in the 2019-2020 season against the Lakers, and that went 6 games. But anyway, let's get into it. Number 1, neutral spot. The NBA Finals and bubble was in Disney World in Orlando, Florida. No team had home court advantage per se except for the Orlando Magic. But they ended up losing in the first round anyway, so it didn't really help them. But no team had home field advantage. No team had any fans because obviously this was because of COVID and they had a bubble, so no one would be exposed, and it worked out successfully. So saying that the Heat had some sort of advantage is laughable. And they were 15-22 away from their home arena, and they did very well in the playoffs, and they ended up making it to the finals. So saying that the spot or not having fans played a factor is just, like, get out of here with that. Okay, number 2. If Miami was such a bad team all along, what does that say about the teams they beat last year? An Indiana Pacers team, a Milwaukee Bucks team with a 2-time MVP, and the Boston Celtics with Kemba, Jason Tatum, and Jaylen Brown. That is just honestly disrespectful to say that this team was that bad and that it was a fluke that they made it past those 3 really good teams. I was nervous in every single series that they played in, but the Heat excelled. And just to say that it was a fluke, you're kind of slapping the other teams in the face saying, like, this team, you lost to that team is worse than you. So that's just really disrespectful, and just to say that it's a fluke is not only disrespecting the Miami Heat, it's disrespecting those 3 franchises that have a lot of pride and that had championship aspirations just like the Heat. So saying that it was a fluke is disrespectful not only to just them, but the other 3 franchises. Number 3 reason why I believe this finals one was not a fluke was based off of the 2006-2007 Cleveland Cavaliers team, considered the worst team in history to make it to the finals. A LeBron James-led team, his first NBA finals that he ended up getting swept against the San Antonio Spurs. Him, Daniel Gibson, and Drew Gooden all averaged double figures. And in this finals, the Heat versus the Lakers, 7 Heat players averaged double figures in this final. 7. And they won 2 games, made it go to 6 games. Jimmy Butler was spectacular, and he carried that team, had 2 of the best finals performances that I would say that a lot of people have ever seen, besides LeBron James, Kawhi, Steph Curry. It was one for the books. Jimmy Butler did amazing. and they were able to get 2, and the LeBron James team wasn't able to win a single game. I looked over the records. They were close in 3 of the losses, but they got swept. And to say that it was a fluke that the Heat lost, another factor is that they lost Bam Adebayo and Goran Dragic after game 1, and they didn't get them until game 4 and 5. It's just laughable, because if the Heat were healthy when they were playing this Lakers team, no one can convince me that it would have not won 7 games. No one can convince me. Like, AD and LeBron are amazing, rightfully deserved. They deserve the chip. But to say that a healthy team, a healthy Miami team, would not push this Lakers team to the absolute limit, you can't prove that to me. You can't disprove what I'm saying about that it wouldn't have won 7 games. It's not possible. You can't. Reason number 4 why the Miami Heat's final run in 2019-2020 was not a fluke was, on paper, you could argue that the Indiana Pacers, the Milwaukee Bucks, and the Boston Celtics had a deeper roster than the Miami Heat. The Heat did have Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, Kendrick Nunn, Andre Iguodala, Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, Chris Silva, Kelly Olynyk, Myers Leonard, and there's Jay Crowder, and they all played into the Heat being able to make it into this final run. And you can say that the other teams had a better roster, and my response is, so what? The Heat played harder, the Heat made more plays, the Heat made shots when it mattered most, and the Heat clamped down on defense when the game was on the line. Specifically, I'm just referencing the conference finals. Game 1 against the Boston Celtics, Jason Tatum had a chance to tie the game. He went up for the jam, and Bam Adebayo blocked it and prevented the Celtics from forcing overtime. And the Heat would go on to win that series in 5-6 games. So saying that their roster wasn't as good, clearly they were. They beat all these players. They beat Victor Oladipo, Sabonis, Miles Turner. Those are all in the Pacers. Milwaukee, Chris Middleton, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Robin Lopez, Brook Lopez, Dante DiVincenzo, and the Celtics, Kemba Walker, Cardiac Kemba, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. All very good players. Had a good bench. Just wasn't able to get it done. The Heat deserved to make that final run, and they validated it by their play in the finals. Regardless if it was in the bubble, they wanted it more, and they showed it, and they made the best plays when it mattered the most. So regardless of the roster, if your players don't play up to par, any team can win. And that's just common sense. Because Commissioner Adam Silver was negligent to the NBA teams, and specifically the Miami Heat, because they allowed several teams to face a Washington Wizards team that was, in essence, plagued with the COVID-19, had the minimum amount of players. The Heat played, the Celtics played, the Sixers played, the Nuggets played. Several teams played the Wizards, and they all ended up having a couple players that tested positive for COVID. But Adam Silver opted to just let these teams play because, it would be unfair to the other teams if we didn't allow the Heat, the Celtics, or the Sixers to play the Wizards, because then it would just mess up the whole schedule. But, Adam Silver, I just have one thing to ask you. Besides the Lakers, the Miami Heat had 70-plus days, which is considered the shortest offseason in history. And you're talking about that it's unfair to the other teams that had close to a regular offseason. Not a lot of teams made it into the bubble because only the top 8 in the West and East make it. So just to say that it's unfair to the other teams if we have to like reschedule or protect these players, Heat, Celtics, Sixers, so many teams were plagued with this, and the Heat had minimal bodies and were facing healthy teams. Healthy. You're expecting that Miami Heat team to show up that was in the finals that had Bam, Jimmy Butler, Goran, Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson show up and show out? You can't. You can't just say that. That's just unfair. And that's the last reason I had, because if that never happened, we maybe have a different discussion. The Fluke Miami Heat wouldn't have never been brought up. And it's just unfair. The Heat have problem with turnovers right now. They're not playing, well, not right now because they're currently winning, but they had turnover problems and they were collapsing in the fourth quarter. They are currently on a 4-game winning streak, which is looking positive for them. So, another comparison I had was the 2016-2017 Miami Heat team. This is the last thing I'm going to say. They started off with an 11-30 record in the first half of the season before the All-Star break. At the end of that season, they went 30-11, finished the season 41-41. That team on paper is significantly worse than this team. If that team can turn it around and win 30 out of their 41 last games, this Heat team can do it. There's no doubt in my mind that they can do it. And the trade deadline is approaching, so they can only get better. So, that was it. The Miami Heat making the finals was not a fluke. They fully deserved it. And obviously, I'm a Heat fan, so I'm trying to be as non-biased as possible. But based on those 5 factors, if you can look me in the eye and say that it's still a fluke, I don't know what else I can tell you. I gave you legitimate reasons. And in the media world, respond. Tell me what I'm saying that's wrong. And then, have a banter and let's talk about it. But just to say that it was a fluke out of hatred just because your team didn't make it, it's not fair. It's not fair, so I appreciate you all watching, everybody. This has been Light Sports Breakdown with LSB, and we still got plenty of basketball to be going. Like I said, the All-Star break is coming up, so plenty to look forward to, plenty to be excited about. The season is here. It's exciting. Trade deadline coming up. Don't miss it. Thanks for watching.